here. I'm helping to moderate. Thanks. And Jane, I wanted to move on to the next series. I remember you telling a story about how the quarantine diary got started, and you had been working on a series prior to the diary, and then an abrupt change happened.
Right.
Would you care to give us a little background on that?
Sure. Let's see the next slide.
Okay.
So in September of 2014, for some odd reason, I decided to record colors as a calendar. So I created my color calendar, and I worked on it until March of 2020. I go to Sherwin-Williams paint store and pick out, the little color samples they have. So many, it's fabulous because they have like 1,500 colors. So you go in there, it's like a candy store, and you just take them for free. So every month I would pick out 3 colors that I felt represented the month. This is March, which always feels sort of gray, but there's a little bit of green coming and a lot of mud, so brown. Then each day I would pick the 3 colors and put them in that order. And it was a fun project, obviously, because I did it for many years. But when I went to get my colors for April 2020, the door was locked, and I waved to the nice guy I talked to every month. And he said, "I can't let you in." And I said, "But it's me, I'm just coming to get my colors." And he said, "Sorry, that's the law, nobody in." So I went home and said, well, after 67 months, I guess I gotta come up with something new. So I did. I came up with the quarantine diary. I decided that I needed to speak about what was happening to us all. From the isolation of my studio, I wanted to just express that, hello, I'm here. Is anybody out there? And share my experience. So I began.
How quickly did you begin after that day with the locked door?
Well, I discovered, it's funny, I discovered that I had enough March colors left over that I could use them, and I had some blues left over. So I think I went to April 2020 and did April that month using leftovers. But then I knew I was not going to have enough to do May. So I took the month to develop my new series. Okay. So if you see the next slide. So I began the series on my birthday. I was born on St. Patrick's Day. They canceled the parade in Boston, and I celebrated my birthday with my family and friends, and then we all had to shelter in place. So as I say here, the intent of this project was not only to continue my daily practice of color, which I really enjoyed doing, but to reach out beyond my studio and hopefully connect with other people.
So much was going on at that time, and I'm sure you, as many of us, didn't really know how long the quarantine lockdown would last, or what it meant, and what was going to be happening throughout that time, and how that was really going to impact our lives and our social fabric. I will say that we know you, know you and understand you to be an artist focused on color, and using color, its limitless possibilities as subject and object. How does working on a series allow you to set rules and restrictions? And I've got a couple questions here. If you're in your daily practice, how do you start? And for a monthly template, how do you make choices?
Okay, next slide. So I was inspired in my studio. I have lots of art books, as most artists do, and I have the book Perfect Imperfect series by Roy Lichtenstein. And I looked at his beautiful drawings on graph paper, and I said, well, that might be fun if I simplify it. So I came up with the dimension of 4¼ by 5½. And every month, if you go to the next slide, every month I'd come up with a design. So then I trace from the graph paper. Then I trace onto archival polyester film with a black magic marker, permanent. Another artist told me the extreme markers are the best, so I use those. And then I turn the film over and I color it with colored pencils. It goes
interesting.
On like
so it's butter. You turn it over. Okay.
I turn it over, yeah. So okay. The outside just has marker which permanent, and the colored pencils then are protected on the inside. And I color it just like a coloring book. So this is April 2020. And in the Drawn Together show at Kingston, I will display all 30 of the months. There'll just be a long strip of them along the wall. I don't know if you can see in my studio, they're along the studio in back there, but it's kind of faint to see. Okay, next slide. So here I am in my studio. You can probably see my colored pencils over here. And so I took a photo to show you. And I generally like to do my quarantine diary the first thing I get into my studio. It's sort of a warm-up. It's a way to just do something playful and quick before I get into more serious work. Does that answer all the questions?
Yep. I think it does. I think it does, but I'm going to ask more. So when you are starting off the day with these, I think you generally say, you said it generally takes, you give it about a half hour or so, right?
Yeah, probably about that.
About a half hour. And it's a practice that lends itself to kind of warming up and almost meditative as well. And I wanted to see if that's always been the case when you're working on series. Is that what you start off your day with, or does it have
no, some of my series are more involved and time consuming, so there isn't a short warm-up period.
Okay.
But these are also very easy to pack into a small duffel bag and take anywhere. So I like the way that I can transport them. I studied for many years at the Cape Cod School of Art in Provincetown under Henchy, who learned from Hawthorne. And we were only allowed starts. We weren't allowed to finish a painting until we became advanced students. So I really love the idea of starts. I love the idea of repetition. I like the idea of inexpensive small materials because you feel loose, you feel free.
Right.
You learn from repeating the same thing over and over, and it gives you new ideas on how to solve the same thing. So for me, it's an intellectual thing that I like series, I think. Yeah.
That's fascinating. And I also just thought too, that would be a great cure for procrastination, which I know is very common amongst artists when faced with a large project or a blank canvas.
Yes. This is not intimidating. It's just in there and fun. And I actually with the proper eraser, I can erase a color if I'm not happy with it and redo it. So there's nothing to be lost. I just feel free and loose and express the way I feel in the morning, which is good.
Full permission.
Yeah.
Yes, that's great.
Okay.
That's great. I think I wanted to also talk about the volume. I believe today you'll have, we did the math, you'll have 861 quarantine diary entries.
Let's see the next
as of today. And then by the time the show is installed, it'll be 868, something like that.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So the sheer volume is a testament to your dedication and the series, and also for having a visual voice in this ongoing struggle of responding to the virus, and the cultural struggles that have emerged more forcefully in the last couple of years. Are there moments of struggle or key dates that stand out for you? And can you take us or talk us through some of them and maybe focus on a few? I think we have a number of them in here.
Slide.
So we'll go next slide. Yeah. Thank you.
This is more about process again.
Okay.
That's okay. We'll get there.
That's good.
Yeah, but my color choices are determined by the news, as you just say, Amy. There's been so much going on during the whole quarantine, politically in this country, culturally, everything. It's just been mind-boggling. So I do like to express the news. I like the weather has always affected me, my mood, observations I've made of color, and perhaps memory. So here's April 3rd with 4 million refugees have fled Ukraine. Next slide. yeah, so, and I also post daily. It's my way to reach out beyond the studio.
Right.
And not all the dates have text. Some of them are just the weather, and I'm not even saying what it is, or the color combinations I'm enjoying. But I'll show you some of the categories that have to do with the news. So September 11th, never forget. Again, this connects me. We all remember.
It's non-representative, and yet it straddles somewhere between geometric abstraction and hard edge painting and sort of a recognizable representation. This one, and I know that there's a few more that also have that feeling that you really do read it.
That blue sky that day that we will always remember.
Right.
Next slide. So, and this date became iconic in the news. May 25th, 2020, George Floyd is killed during an arrest in Minneapolis. So even though I'm not specifically telling my views in the text, I think the image and the color use speaks for itself.
Right.
I hope.
Right.
So the next slide. So spanning 30 months, I can show you dates which follow the news. After George Floyd, June 6th was the biggest day of Black Lives Matter demonstrations. Then July 20th, the demonstrators in Portland, Oregon were arrested by federal forces. In that one on the right, I tried to use sort of khaki colors for the Army and the federal forces that moved in. So it helped me personally to express myself and became an outlet for some of my frustration and anger I was feeling. And we were isolated. How else could we express it?
Right.
Next slide. And then news could be celebrated. April 21st, finally, 2021, the jury finds Derek Chauvin guilty on all 3 counts in the murder of George Floyd. So I like to follow things through.
And just a quick question on online experience and social media during this period of time, especially as you use Instagram to posting. How did that broaden and strengthen your experience at the time?
Some people would reply or tell me their reactions to the Instagrams, but often I don't know what the reaction is out there. And as I say, I try not to be too specific in my point of view, because we all have different points of view, but I like the fact that they're an image and they're just colors and lines. And I like to think the viewer can make what they want of it.
Well, from my experience too, seeing the series from the beginning, I would look to your site every day.
Thanks.
To your Instagram postings every day as a connection, as a barometer of what I was maybe feeling during the day, or just as a reach out to be connected in a sense. So to me, it spoke about what we were collectively experiencing in a way that I appreciated as a visual artist. And I had wondered if, well, the diary postings really reached out and resonated. And I had wondered if you did envision the viewer experience throughout this. And if so, or if not, has that changed?
Has it changed? Well, I guess I'm,
as 2 years have gone by.
Now that we're out amongst people again and a little bit more allowed to be a little bit more social, I do find how many people follow them, and I'm very appreciative, and it means a lot to me. I think I'd be happy just doing them personally, but knowing they have an audience is pretty special. Yeah.
And being installed very, very soon in a gallery.
I can't wait.
I know. It's got multiple lives here.
That's going to be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is very timely work. Have you brought this method of working into your teaching?
I have. Let's go to another slide. I'm not sure what the next one is. Okay,
process.
Yeah. Yes, this is good for talking about teaching. I did teach a Zoom class on dynamics of composition during the pandemic. It was frustrating as an instructor to not be able to physically see the person's work, lean over their shoulders and talk to them, but we managed. And I used this quarantine series quite a bit in teaching, in showing that the same design can be changed by lights and darks and color use. So here you can see November 3rd, election day, November 7th, Joe Biden wins. But then if you look at the ones on the right, January 6th, the pro-Trump mob invades the US Capitol. Look where we've gone with that. And then January 13th, 2021, President Trump is impeached by the House for a second time. So within the same month, I am expressing the news in different ways.
Right. So for beyond expressing news in various ways, you also mentioned you talk about, or you express these pieces through weather, different events that are happening. So it sounds like it has really changed from the beginning of the COVID lockdown, being very specific to COVID itself, to cultural and current events, in a way that is newsworthy, but also very personal to you.
Let's see the next slide.
Okay.
Yeah, so now I'll show you a little bit of the timeline of the pandemic, which is why I originally started it. And this is May 1st. Governor Charlie Baker orders all Massachusetts residents to wear a mask in public places. So then continuing on, I'll show you, there were a lot of these, so we'll go through them fairly rapidly.
We can dive into them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amy, you can tell when to change slides. When I focused on the pandemic, it reaffirmed the need for a daily practice, and my diligence became important during the isolation. It gave me a sense of purpose. I know some artists said they couldn't create at all. They had very difficulty creating. Some people had difficulty reading, even a novel. It affected everyone differently. But I do feel that working on this series kept me going in a lot of ways. It was meaningful to me, and it helped. So here we are, July 12th, Florida shatters the single day record with 15,300 cases, which at the time seemed incredible, but look where the pandemic went.
Terrifying and shocking.
Yeah.
And out of control.
So continue here. Okay, so December 12th, the United States sees its worst week since the pandemic started. And they talked about everyone making plans to travel for Christmas. I was like, seriously? So, I mean, everyone makes their own decisions and choices, but look what we did to ourselves, I guess. Next slide. Yeah, so then after Christmas, January 9th, a new record high of 4,000 deaths in a single day. Right. And Cape Cod. So I live in Falmouth on Cape Cod, and a lot of it are summer homes. During the summer, of course, like right now, it's very crowded, but a lot of people came here during the pandemic, and it was a little frightening. I felt I was in a safe place until everyone decided, well, that's a safe place, let's go there. So we got a real surge of people moving here, and our hospitals are small, and I know Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket didn't allow anybody. And I think Vinyl Haven in Maine also, there were certain islands that said, we can't handle people coming. So they shut down.
Oh, how did they shut the borders?
They didn't allow ferries or airplanes.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's an island, I believe.
Okay.
So, okay, next slide.
Okay, thanks.
There are a lot of the pandemic ones.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, this was, so here's a positive.
Questions here and there.
A lot of people had trouble getting the vaccine. Remember that whole trying to get online and spending hours to get a vaccine. Right. For some reason, I got a notice on my cell phone that my husband could get his vaccine tomorrow. I was like, okay. So off he went and he got his vaccine. It was like a miracle. So we were very pleased.
That first vaccine.
Yeah. So it was awesome. Yeah. Next slide.
Sure.
And then February 22nd, remember President Biden held that candlelight vigil. It was absolutely beautiful to watch on TV, to remember the 500,000 deaths.
I wanted to also, this one, when I saw this slide, this one really moved me. I remember seeing that, the vigil, and what it represented. I also wanted to ask too, can you talk more about your choice of colors and placement of your punctuations?
Oh, sure. A lot of the pandemic ones, the COVID is represented with magenta or hot pink, because I felt as though the TV images that we were seeing or online, that was somehow the color of those little strange balls of COVID that they were showing us. I don't know if it's scientific or what that was based on. But they do change. The colors of the different variants that have come up change. So I try to just, that's my reaction to those colors. This is obviously the candle surrounded by the darkness.
We're starting to get some comments, and we'll pull some in from the viewers here and there.
Okay. Yeah, this is a good spot to stay on. This was after 1 year.
This is the 1 year mark.
Yeah.
Okay. So the stats are significant after 1 year. And so can you, so maybe as we go throughout these, maybe talk a little bit about the color choice and the punctuation and the, I know that you do the monthly design.
Yes.
And is that something you're always comfortable with adhering to for the month?
I am.
As one of your rules?
Yeah. People have asked me how long it takes to come up with my new design. Okay. It's very odd because I just use graph paper, a pencil, and an eraser. And I don't know, it just comes easily to me. I keep them all displayed in my studio so I can make sure I'm not repeating too closely any of the designs. Obviously, the more months that I design, the more chance of getting a close repeat of a design. But so far, I'm okay. And I find just being able to erase lines and move them around is pretty easy. Yeah.
So you have each month displayed on board, correct?
Yeah.
Or do you set them aside?
Yeah. So each month it's just on graph paper like that. Okay. And I trace them. But then you can see behind me, I post them each day. I put them up so that as the month progresses, I can look at them as a whole and say, what color haven't I used? What can I do compositionally to change them, to shift them? So yeah, I think further on in the slides, I'll talk about art for art's sake and how they just become art and not a statement.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Next slide. Thank you.
Oh yes, my grandson. This was hockey. You know, they were allowed to go back and do some sports, and the hockey team got it. So there we are. Oh. Luckily, he was not very sick. The family didn't get very sick because they'd all been vaccinated, except for the baby. He was too young. But
and your grandson was vaccinated?
Yes.
Okay. He was the okay.
Yes.
Let's go to the next.
And then this might be the last one I'm showing on the pandemic series.
Okay.
The numbers. I think it's very interesting to see the numbers increasing, and we're not a third world country. Okay, so the weather is another whole grouping. I grew up in New Hampshire and I walked to school in all kinds of weather. So the outdoors has always been part of my daily life, and it impacts my mood. So I have spent a lot of the time doing the weather. In June, the first June, I realized how fortunate I was to live on Cape Cod. But then, of course, a lot of people came to Cape Cod from elsewhere, but I still think it was a good place to be. Unfortunate. Yeah.
Yes, it would be. Would be.
First day of winter.
Oh. Just had a quick question too about I'm thinking back, looking at some of the series and how you set up your rules. What advice would you give to anyone thinking about working in a series format? Either something like this or just series in general, something.
The repetition is wonderful. I can say it is similar to when an artist has an exhibition. I remember back to my first art show and just seeing my work on a wall framed made me look at it differently from a new perspective. And a series is very much like that you remember the one you did before, you're doing one currently, and as you're doing the current one, you're thinking of what you can do next. So they keep building on each other, and I think the series gets stronger the longer you do it until maybe it fizzles out. I don't know. Yeah.
They become relational. And I know that you talk about also how the series impacts your regular practice. You might choose a different color or different thought that you had that goes into another piece.
Yes, I've started taking notes on color combinations that have surprised me, that I'm like, whoa, that's kind of, never would have thought of that. That would make a good painting. So I am keeping track of some of the color combinations that just have happened by accident. Yeah.
And for you, when you look at this work, this is just a general question for me. What excites you most about seeing how the colors work in these pieces? If there is such an excitement.
Well, I think later on when I show some of the art for art's sakes, I could answer that better.
Okay,
with
sounds
some
good.
Images. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, here we are, heat wave. Tomorrow's supposed to be better, hot and humid. Okay, art for art's sake, here we go. Okay, so yes, for instance, this color combination, and I'm considering the balance here. So I would like to probably try this as a painting eventually.
Okay.
I love Jasper John's quote, do something to that, and then do something to that. So that's what a series means to me. It's building, it's being experimental, trying something new on something you've already done. Yeah.
Okay.
Next slide.
Oh, can we go back just for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. It says here in your notes, you're considering balance. So it's interesting to look at that again, now knowing what you were thinking about here, what you were considering. Thank you. It's just a quick comment. Thank you.
So MC Escher. And I had, before the pandemic, I had seen a beautiful show of his work. And I was really taken by this quote of his, that there are 3 elements that are an inherent part of the fascination with the graphic process: desire for multiplication, the beauty of the craft, and forced limitations resulting from the technique. And it feels like that's what this daily practice does for me. It does all those 3 things. And one of the things I'm enjoying doing every month is reversing values. So on the left, it's warm lights versus dark cools. And on the right, it's dark warms versus light cools.
And seeing what that does.
Yeah. And more compositions, light versus dark. Right. Obviously, some of the months, if they're not even numbered, I can't do light versus dark if there are uneven positive negatives. So I have to do something different, but that's good too. Shakes me up.
You make the rules.
I make the rules. I break the rules. Yeah, exactly.
Full permission.
Yeah. So the first day of
Awesome.
each month, I take them all down from here. I have them all in envelopes and put them away so that I can start the next month.
Okay.
Here's where I forget the question, Amy, you were asking me about, but here's where I really love the challenge on transparency. So seeming as though a color is going across. I studied Joseph Alber's interaction of color a lot, and I particularly love his chapters on transparency and how two colors can look like three, or yeah. So the next one's transparency here.
This one.
So these were both done this last March. And I was thinking on this, it would have been interesting on March 6th, instead of having the greens top and bottom, if I had those, the yellows, and had the yellows flow vertically through as a transparency. So
it's amazing what this does with color.
Yeah. So you can
it really
do it.
is.
Yeah. Oh, and yeah, this
And
is
then
fun.
this, yes.
Beautiful show at Harvard on Mondrian of his transatlantic paintings. Loved that show.
Well, I missed it.
So this would be an example of just looking at an art book. For instance, the Roy Lichtenstein that started the series. Sometimes I just feel like expressing something I was looking at. So I don't know how long I'll continue the series. The artist on Kawara, if anyone's familiar with him, died at the age of 81, or as he liked to say, at the age of 29,771 days. I've only done 800, so I have a long way to go, and I won't live as long, but whatever. I don't mean that I won't live to be 81. I just mean that I won't, because I started this series so late, I won't possibly be able to make 29,000.
Oh, of the series, time told by series.
His series, yes. Unbelievable. But what Peter said, what I thought was wonderful, that his art evokes a cosmic perspective by which his own life, and by extension the lives of all of us, register as a negligible spark in time. And the pandemic has seemed to have lasted so long, and yet in terms of my life, it's been a negligible spark in time. It's just, it hasn't been that long. So I think the whole perspective of time enters into this, and our whole perspective of it.
Time and social fabric.
Yes.
And a sense of oneself and isolation.
Right.
Certainly.
So I did want with this show to be able to show all 868. And so I thought, well, that's not possible. I will have 15 framed, and I will have the months up there. So I decided to purchase a digital photo frame and load all 868 on there. So that will be in the show. I don't expect any viewer to stand there and watch all 186 of them go by every 3 seconds. But to me, it was important to put them all in the show. There's a wonderful show at Mass MoCA up until May 1st, 2025 of James Turrell called Into the Light. And when I was at the show, I went into a room and watched his video for about 45 minutes. And it didn't tell how long the loop was. So I asked, and they told me it was 2 hours. I said, oh my goodness. So I, as an artist, would have been patient for 2 hours, but I don't expect anyone to see all 868 of my images. So I created a notebook. In order to put them in chronological order, I had to number, if you can see, number 1 is 317 when I started. So I had to create a whole numbering system to load them onto the digital photo frame. A little crazy, yeah.
Definitely Turrell's work, some of it is endurance, but it's a beautiful thing to endure.
So. Yes.
And I will let everyone know too that I will put all your references again. I'll put your references in the chat as we end of who you're talking about and who some of your inspiration came from or your references, especially working with series.
Yep. So here's today.
Okay.
And we're again talking about the Omicron variant BA.5. It's the most contagious so far. I'm learning more and more people who have the virus, who become sick, even though they've been vaccinated and boosted twice. And I just chatted with a young girl who is being married this summer, and she was sick for a full week, having been vaccinated and boosted. So it's not over. We're still in it.
And we are, as it's changing. Let's see here. So this is how many today we have again? 861. Is that okay?
I think so. Yeah. We install next Monday.
So we have the okay. I have and you have a couple of associates here joining you today, so it's nice to see them. I wanted to also ask you, what are your hopes for your series as they parallel and form your ongoing body work? I think I already asked that, but thinking about in the broader sense, not just the series, but if you have any kind of longer goals. I know you said you don't know how long you'll be doing this, but if you have any more thoughts on that.
For the series that I've been doing, some of them I do return to them after a few years. When I'm not doing them, all of a sudden I'm interested in them again for, I don't know, whatever reason. I don't know if this will be like that or if I will just keep on going. I don't know how long I would have done the color calendar if the doors hadn't closed to Sherwin-Williams. So for now, even if I'm not speaking about the pandemic, there's plenty on the news that I feel like want to express.
Right.
So I'm just enjoying the series, and I'm plan to continue it for a while. Yeah.
So let's see. I think we're going to be getting to questions soon, but I think it's around time that we should just wrap up our discussion, and we'll begin to open it up for questions soon. But I just wanted to reiterate that it's so exciting to see you here today at this moment to dive into your process again and thoughts behind this work. And I'm looking forward, and we're looking forward to seeing your show in real life finally, and getting to experience the breadth of the series. Thank you for sharing your work with us here today and for reminding us of the power of art to channel, to express, to document, especially this moment in time, and to make connections beyond ourselves. And I would like to end with your words that you recently wrote in an email, if I may, and I quote, "I am feeling this diary is so current. The nation is experiencing such unrest and changes. The political news is overtaking the impact of COVID, to be sure, and how this series helps me express and reach out beyond my studio, hoping in some small way to make a difference," end quote. And I will thank you again, Jane, and thanking you for good conversation and for making a difference. And now we'll also welcome back Diane and open it up for questions. So do we have any in the chat? I think we've got a couple. I'm going to see. Okay, so here's a question. What's next? After the associate shows up, do you envision more shows with the digital frame, or possibly showing the entire body of work installed in a gallery elsewhere? And will you continue with Instagram?
Well, I guess every artist dreams of if they could exhibit whatever they wanted, wherever they wanted. I would love, if I continue this for a few more years, to install all of them at Mass MoCA. But yeah, but that's a dream. And so I think I am happy with the digital age that I can share the whole series. You can go on Instagram, you can see every day. So it's up to an individual viewer how much they want to see of it, which is nice. They have a choice.
Well, thank you. We have another question here. I think Yildiz has hand up.
Yeah. Hi, Jane. Beautiful.
Yes.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Beautiful, beautiful work. I was also going to ask what's next, but that's already answered. And much better than what I expected when your answer about Masmoka. Why not? Dreams are to be made, I don't know, reality. Why not? Think positive. My other question was, I realize these are all very geometric shapes. Maybe that's why it's all very straight linear lines. You never use curves. Is that any reason for that? Is you prefer maybe straight line for a reason?
It's interesting you ask that because my grandchildren are here for the summer, and my 11-year-old grandson, all my grandchildren are artistic, I have to say. Of course, I encourage it. But he was over when I was starting to design a new month. And he said, but Emma, you never use a curve. Let's put some circles in there. So I said, perfect, pull up a chair. So I gave him a piece of graph paper and we started at it. And they just didn't work. We both agreed they just don't work. I don't know why. Maybe someday they will. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do a lot of, I didn't even notice that people draw my attention that I use a lot of curves. And I don't know why. I don't know. It's something very in our nature, maybe. I don't know. Some straight lines, some curvy lines. But I didn't know if that was for this project only or in general. You never use curves, maybe. Circles or curvy, you know.
Liechtenstein used a lot of polka dots. He had a lot of dotted things.
Polka dots, different.
Yeah.
Yeah, polka dots. Yeah, that could be. That would be maybe part of like circles, maybe tiny circles. I just was curious if you had a
Okay,
reason.
well, watch for it. Maybe you'll see them someday.
Yeah, that can be a transition.
Never say never.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Jane, I have two questions. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. On the mass murder series,
Yes.
can you tell me more about your choice of the spacing and the colors that you use?
Sure. For the Uvalde one, you may remember there are two groupings, which are the two adjacent classrooms. And the yellow were teachers that were shot, and the pink were girl students, and the blue were boy students. So my research, I always find out the sequence of events, and I always write down every victim's name, their age, and then I determine the colors to represent them. So the composition and the colors represent how the mass shooting occurred.
Can you tell me about some of the other ones that you did? I missed the exhibit in Cotuit.
Oh, sure. You can also go on my website and see some of them.
Okay.
For instance, Pulse nightclub, there were so many. I did it as a rainbow to represent the flag that represents the gays. Yeah. So let's see what other ones. There was one church, and I couldn't come up with how to represent it until I read that they had built a marble fountain to represent as a memorial. And so I chose white for the marble, and the number of victims ended up compositionally to make a cross. So it's just a plain white cross to represent that mass shooting.
Do you ponder these for quite a while before you commit to the form, or it tends to
I actually stopped doing them for a while. I had a large exhibition of all of them at the Cape Cod Museum of Art. And 2 mass shootings occurred when I installed that show. So I had to do those and deliver them. And the museum nicely installed them. So those were to make the show current. And after that, I just needed a break. I said, you know, I could be doing multiple of these every day and not represent them all. So I decided just to take a break from them. And then when I was invited to be in Newburyport in this current show, I again felt I needed to make it current and do the ones that had just occurred. So I picked it up again, but I have stopped again. Yeah, it's a difficult series to do.
Yes, I understand.
Okay.
I have another question about colors. I see your pencils all behind you.
Yes.
Are they all colors in the world, or they're just a?
It's they're just Prismacolor 150 set.
So can you do something totally different if you wanted to absolutely change your colors? These are the basics.
These are basic 150. It's the most you can order, the color set. They satisfy me for now. Once in a while, I'll mix 2 colors together, but often they don't blend well on this film for some reason. So for now, I'm fine just using what I have. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I
haven't felt they limited me yet.
Yeah. I just didn't know how the color world works.
Oh, it's huge.
Do, I don't know, all primaries or something. Yeah. Thank you.
We've got a couple comments here. Let's see here. Madge mentions thinking that it would be fun to see them as a flip book, so very much like the idea of a digital photo frame. And someone else saying yes to Madge's idea, or using animation to show the evolution of the imagery. Is that something that you've thought about at all?
For me, the digital photo frame is going to do it without too much work. I don't really want to devote a lot of time to restructuring them, I guess. They're quick, they're immediate. Then the day is done and I move on to something else. Hi, Beck. Can you call him back? Rebecca.
Oh, we gotta unmute. Unmute Rebecca. I think Rebecca, let me get you.
Got it. I should say while she's
excellent.
Unmuting,
Thank you.
I should say while Rebecca is unmuting that she is my best friend from 4 years old.
Hello.
And her father was an artist. She's an artist, and that's partly what I'm not an artist.
I'm trying. But anyway, I've seen your work go from beautiful. Hold on. I don't know what's happening here. Hold on. Wonderful, beautiful landscapes to all this wonderful art that is very activist. And I was just wondering, what's more satisfying for you now? Is it more satisfying to do the activism now, as opposed to just art for art's sake and colors and imagery? It's a big push-pull, I think, between what you've done in the past and what you're doing now. And I just was wondering how you feel about that. Is it more rewarding to be more activist, which is really wonderful? I really appreciate what you're doing. I really do. I just wonder if it's more rewarding for you.
Beck, you know me so well. So yes. My honest answer is I love doing these little quick ones, but I'm happy that they're quick because my real passion is color interaction. And I like to spend most of my time working on my large paintings, which are just based on color and color relatedness. So that's where my love still is. But I do like reaching out to others with the Instagram and feeling connected to the greater art world. And that's one of the reasons I like being a member, associate member at Kingston, is I'm meeting younger artists and interacting with their art and getting their reactions. So as much as I like the isolation and just doing my own painting, I also like the social aspects that this series has led me to.
Activism is so important now with artists, I think, and I don't think we all realize that, but we have a role. We do have a role, and you have a great role there. You're doing a great job.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thanks, Beck.
Thank you.
We have about 5 minutes left for questions, and then after that, we'll just open it all up and everyone can talk to each other in our Zoom village. But we'll take a couple more questions if we've got any out there. If not, we can open it up.
So Jay, what are you doing now for your big paintings?
Well, right now I'm not, because I'm getting ready to install this show,
Right.
which takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. Yeah, so as associates, we all do the work ourselves. So I'm doing the notebook and the list of works and the labels for the wall and helping install the show. So that's what I'm doing now. But I'm hoping soon to start up some new paintings. I have ideas for them.
Great, wonderful. But I love what you're doing on the
Thanks.
diary. It's amazing how they're so beautiful still. They're just so beautiful, even if they're just, a daily with your putting down paint. I mean even just pencil, it's just beautiful, the beautiful colors. So
Thanks.
you have a wonderful sense of color. So I appreciate that.
Jay, I always think of you out there in the cranberry bogs every day, painting and freezing yourself. And
Yeah.
New York, I could never understand how you did it, but I knew what the reward was. When you're outdoors, are you painting, or are you just living and experiencing nature?
Well, I did, there has been mention that, yes, I began as a landscape painter on Cape Cod, gorgeous place to paint, and was very happy and satisfied for probably 30 years doing it. And then I went and got my master's, because I went to the Fine Arts Work Center in Provincetown to the Mass Art graduate program. I just wanted to change and be different and contemporary. And it pulled the rug out from under me, which was very good. And I gave up my landscapes and went into just color use. But I have gone back to landscapes again. So when I am out walking the marshes, which Amy and I both love to do, I record what I see, I take photographs, and the landscape has come back into my work. If you visit the Cove Gallery in Wellfleet, or their website, I give them the landscapes, because it's a gallery on the Cape, and that's what the viewers are looking for here. So it's a way to still represent Cape Cod and the beauty of it. So I wear many hats. Keeps me busy.
What do you like most? What do you like most, Jane? I mean, do you like, what's your
Well, I love the landscape. I love walking it. I loved the cranberry bogs. I may do another series of those in my new. So what I'm doing is I'm doing color bands that are abstract, and then I'm putting a small little zip of a digital photograph in them. So when the viewer looks at them, they zero right in on that reality, and they say, oh, I know what that is. But it's really very abstract. And I enjoy those. I like switching around. I don't like staying with one thing too long, other than this series, because they only take a few minutes, half hour.
That's great. Good for you.
And I'll add important minutes.
Do that.
Thank
just
you.
have that. Wonderful.
I'm going to open it up in a minute here for everyone.
I wish you could see all the viewers. I'm seeing people I know out there.
People put their camera on, and yeah, sure, let's do that. Let's end it here. and we can then open it up for further discussion, say hello. We are at time, so unfortunately we will need to end soon here. And if we didn't get to your question or you want to connect with Jane, feel free to reach out to her directly, and I'll put everything in the chat again of all her sites and ways to be in touch, and information about resources she mentioned, and influences she mentioned early in the talk. And another reminder, don't miss our upcoming Kingston Conversation with Associates Yildiz Grodowski and Diane Noveski. Yay, slated for Tuesday, August 16th at 7 p.m. and more details will be coming soon. So thank you again, Jane, and a special thanks to Diane Medikitis Brown, our marketing director, and the whole marketing team at Kingston Gallery. Thank you everyone for joining us. Good to see you here, and please feel free to unmute yourselves now, have a chance to talk to each other, and or make some noise in show of support. And I'm going to put everything in the chat again right now.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, Lee.
Wonderful.
This is great. I loved it.
Nancy, how's Nancy? Say Nancy White, how are you?
Hi, Nancy. Where is she? She's my sister.
I know.
She's out in San Francisco. And she is a very well-known artist, Nancy White. You can visit her, nancywhite.net.
No, not there.
She left.
She's in the bathroom or something, who knows? Anyway, we grew up together, Nancy and Jane and I, so.
Yeah. Nancy was just in the big art Chicago.
Really?
Some paintings, yep, did really well out there.
Wow.
Yeah, she went to the Boston Museum School.
So she's not talking though. Whatever.
She's not talking. Sue Howell, hi there. She's in Birmingham, Michigan.
Yeah, I was wondering when are you going to come to the Midwest? We'll take you to Cranbrook. I'm walking distance to Cranbrook School of Art. You ever heard of Cranbrook? Nobody's heard of Cranbrook.
Yeah.
Oh, Jane, you're just amazing.
Oh, no, not really. I have wonderful, wonderful people out there supporting me. Thank you, everybody.
Well, you're a wonderful artist, Jane, and you're very disciplined is the big word, I think. It's just great
I
discipline.
am disciplined, yes.
Oh, I agree.
My dad was a nuclear
I'm
physicist with
envious.
NASA, and my mom was a librarian. So there we go.
I've always I've just always envied that. I can't do it. So I appreciate it. So, anyway, you're wonderful. We love your art, and thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
I agree with her.
Thanks, Jane. It's really,
Thank you.
really
Thanks, everybody.
inspirational.
Thanks, Amy and Diane and Kingston Gallery.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
No thunderstorms.
one.
Yay.
Beautiful, Jane. I'm saving the chat for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.